3 weeks ago, I was down in Mexico working with a group of students, my daughter being one of them, who were building a shelter for battered women in the Baja. It was a wonderful week, and in the process of working for a group of women who desperately needed the help that we were providing, I asked one of the workers a question that doesn't sound all that profound, but in my opinion takes an idea from the Word and puts it down on the ground and reveals whether it actually does work in real life. And it was a simple question. I said, Jesus promises that if we put His kingdom first and His righteousness, all these other things will be added to us, meaning our clothes, our food, our housing. In other words, He's saying, if our priorities in life are right, then we don't have to worry about the stuff of life, because it'll all fall in place in good time. And so I asked my friend, is that true down here? I see a lot of people that don't have enough food to feed their families for a day. I see people who are living in houses that are inferior to the garden sheds that we put our lawnmowers in here in Canada. I also just witness a level of suffering down here that I'm not as familiar with in my part of the world, where most of my friends live very well and very comfortably. My friend was very thoughtful about the question, didn't answer me right away. And then with a bit of a surprise on his face, he said, I've never really thought about it, but I just reviewed every single person I know down here that is serving Jesus Christ and walking in a Spirit-filled, Christ-centered way. And every single one of those people have enough food every day for their family. Every single one of those people have some level of shelter, which is usually better than the standard that most people have down here. And every single one of those people have more than they need to meet the needs of their own families. Now, when I say more than they need, I don't mean an extra $10,000 at the end of the year to give away. I mean more than they need to feed their family that day. And it is the practice of believers in that part of the country to, if they have more than they need for the day, to share with others who don't have enough. I begin with this because it is my conviction that one of the most important roles that a Christian school plays in the life of a student is to help them prioritize the things of life into the most important to the least important. The most important things of life, I think we would all agree, are knowing and loving and worshiping Jesus Christ. And so a Christian school at its heart is a place where students are taught to worship God, not in the way that we often think of worship, because we often think of worship in terms of going to church, singing some songs, and that's where it begins and ends. But worship in the Old Testament was not so much an act of musical gifting as much as a life orientation. It was a life of grateful service to God, a life of joyful celebration of the goodness of God and the glory of God in the everyday things of life. It was living your life for Him, doing whatever you were doing, whether it be harvesting or planting or managing the financial resources of your household in such a way that you were saying to God and to everyone around you, God is the most important part of my life. He is the one who sustains me. He is the one who gives me what I have. And it is for Him that I live and for Him that I use these resources. And I believe that if we are really going to be doing our job as Christian educators, by the time our kids leave grade 12, they will understand that we believe as a community that Jesus Christ is the most important thing in life, and every part of our lives should be oriented to His pleasure and to His will. I'm not suggesting that every kid will believe that, because that's not something that we have control over. All we have control over is what we are presenting to them every day. And it is a good thing that every child in a school leave and when asked, what's that school about, are able to tell them. Even if they put a negative spin on it, they at least are able to say they're all about Jesus there. They're all about serving him and doing his will. They might not agree with it, they might not submit to it, but at least they know what your school was about. And again, I come back to you personally. When you come to school in the morning, is your first thought, what can I do for you today, Jesus? How can I teach the kids in such a way that they will value you more at the end of the day than they did at the beginning? Is that a question that ever really goes through your head, or is it more about, I've got to do this curriculum, I've got to do that curriculum, there's a government exam coming up, I'm going to be evaluated this year, I've got a mortgage. Those things are all important, but if they are the most important thing, if they're the only thing that you think about, then I would suggest that maybe you don't have a Jesus first, kingdom first orientation. And as I challenged you in the last segment, I want to challenge you again, but from a slightly different perspective. Being a kingdom first Christian means that you actively think about the supremacy of Jesus Christ and his goodness all the time, every day. So, did you do that today? Has it happened? Have you already done that or not because you were too busy with other things? Well, I want you to pause and just worship God in your spirit and say, God, you are supreme. You are my creator. You are my redeemer. You are beyond my greatest aspiration. And then the second thing you need to do is then maybe now decide, you know what? When I come into my classroom in the morning, before I start shuffling papers, before I go and talk to a colleague, before I begin to mark that thing, I want to take 5 minutes and say, Jesus, please be first here. Be first in the way that I interact with kids. Be first in the way that I teach. Show me how to make you first. Give me a desire to make you first. Because you know what? I believe if you do that, then suddenly a lot of those things that have you up at night will begin to fall in place. The kids that are struggling, the assignments that you can't seem to get ahead of, the curriculum that seems like a monster that you can't seem to tame. You know, if you begin to focus very much on Jesus and then learn to listen to him and let him guide you through the day, I think you'll be able to go home and say, well, you know, maybe my whole list wasn't exactly knocked off today, but I can say this much. To the best of my ability at this stage of my faith and growth, I put Jesus first. And I encourage my kids to do the same in the quality of work they do and in the way they think. And that's enough for now. In fact, it's enough for eternity.